Hi, well I'm back again for another art journal page in my magazine art journal. This page started out as a page that I put leftover paint on from my palette from another page. I grabbed some pages out of an old book and I'm going to collage them onto the background with Atelier binder medium. It's really quick to dry. It's a bit unforgiving, so you've got to make sure that you put your brushes straight into water after you've used them. But it's really good at adhering the collage elements. I usually coat both sides of one on the page and one on the piece of paper that I'm adhering. Because I'm so impatient, this works really well for me, and then I just burnish it with my fingers. As you can see, I'm tearing some of the edges off too, so I didn't put the binder medium right to the edge because I wanted to have that rough look. So as I've burnished the middle of the collage elements, I've then ripped off some of the outside of the papers, and then I've rubbed in the middle there, and I've just rubbed some little areas off there. I really like that. I've then used the binder medium to stick down some serviettes. So this is just the top layer of a serviette, and I thought the colours went well with what was already on the page in the background. So I'm just randomly sticking it down. This gives the page a bit more tooth because the magazine pages are quite shiny, as you know. So the layers will just give it a bit of strength, and give it a bit of tooth, as well as having the nice patterns in the background. So this doesn't take long to dry. I'm pulling out some colours now. I sort of saw there's a little copper element down the bottom of the left-hand page there, so I'm pulling out some oranges in various tones. The Jo Sonja orange and the Yuan Brilliant, and I think the cadmium orange of the Free Flow paints. Just going to put it on with my finger. I like doing this particularly when there's a bit of texture in the background. When you rub over the top of it, you get a really nice, it picks up the texture in the background and you get a really nice layer of colour. I like the randomness of it, and I like how it blends. It's just a bit different to a brush. I use my finger a lot. So I'm just randomly going over different areas and just dipping in each of these two colours that I've got out at the moment. I'm not really rubbing hard onto the paper. I'm just lightly rubbing over it. And if you'll see, I skip from one area of the page to the other. That's so you don't get a line of the same colour. So now that's a really nice addition, and another layer on top picks up the copper colour that I liked in the background. So I've dried that off, and I've chosen the quote, which is about lotuses, and I'm picking out now the blue from the background, so it's not going to be a traditional lotus colour. But I like that teal colour in the background. It's one of my favourite colours is teal. So I'm just grabbing the chalk pencil and just roughly sketching in the shape of the lotus. Grabbing a soft velvet brush, and I've put out these two Jo Sonja colours, which I've listed at the front of the video. And I'm just outlining the shape of the lotus now so that I don't get lost when I start painting each petal by itself. So I've done this in the lighter colour just to give me a bit of a guideline. And I'm dry brushing, so the brush isn't wet and I haven't got a lot of paint on, but I'm starting at the tips because that's where I want the lightest area to be. And I'm just dragging the paint. Then I've gone into the darker Koi Pond colour, and I'm pulling from the middle because that's where the darkest areas will be. So the lightest areas I'm pulling out from the outside, and the darkest areas I'm pulling out from the inside of the flower. Again, dry brushing. And this takes quite a few layers, because if you try to do it all in one go, you'll just get a great big blob and you won't be able to see that beautiful texture from underneath that you can see in that middle lotus petal in particular. So I've just gone ahead and chalked in the other flowers. One is a bud and one is a smaller lotus that is blooming, because the quote talks about blooming, so I wanted to sort of have various stages of the flower blooming. I go back over them as they dry and I feel that they need a bit more definition. As I say, it's a bit of a push and pull, so I'll put some dark in and then I'll come back and I'll pull the other way with the light colours, go back and do some more dark, build up the colours. I just felt like that needed a little bit of orange down there in the left hand corner before I put the blue on, so I just popped that in. And now I'm starting with the highlights, so I'm going back with the light colour. Those petals on that big lotus are dry by now, and I think I've added in a little bit of white too if I needed it. Just depends how much contrast you get in the colour. Going back over all the petals. Now I'm pulling out the white. So now I've added a bit more white to the tips, and you can see that's really highlighting those tips. They're the accent highlights, I call them. Just wiping my brush of excess paint so that we don't get the blobs. And I'm going to keep dry brushing over the petals to give them shape and definition. Also going down the stems. I do like painting these lotuses. There's just so many variations you can get on them, and they're just a peaceful flower to paint. Going back with a bit more orange if I think that it needs it in the background, and I've pulled out a silicone scraper that I picked up at the hardware store just to see what sort of texture I can get with that. I do like trying different things that I've got lying around the house just to see if I can get some more patterns and textures. Going back with a bit of darker orange where it's needed. And now I'm starting to pull in a bit of a teal, so I've watered down the darker teal colour, and with the filbert brush laying on its side, I'm just sort of rubbing a little bit, and it's like a glaze almost because it's not very thick. And I like how when you glaze that colour over the orange, it gives a really nice deep colour, dark shadow colour. So I've decided to frame the whole spread with that colour. So I'm just going around the outside of the page with the filbert brush. There's quite a bit of water in there, so it's quite inky in consistency. And I'm just putting it all around the outside of the page. Spreading it a little bit with my fingers if I need it. I'm adding it into the background of the general spread so that I can tie it all together and give a bit of depth to the page. So now that's nice and dry, I've come back with a black marker and I want to outline the flower. This is quite sketchy, so if I don't follow the line exactly, I'm not too bothered by that. I like it to feel just a bit raw and unconstrained, so I've just roughly outlined it with the black, and now with the white Posca pen, which I think is the medium or the thick tip, I'm writing in the quote. Sometimes I need to let it dry and go over it again to make sure it's nice and white. Sometimes I don't. It all depends on what it picks up from the underneath. This one was nice and bright, so I just left it. Then I got a thinner white Posca pen, and I just put my finger in the text. So I'm just fixing that up with a cotton bud and a bit of water, wiping off where I smudged it. As you can see, I'm rather impatient, and then I get the smudges, but that's okay, it's easily dealt with. So now I'm going around with really sketchy white This is a very fine tip white Posca, and I'm doing very sketchy outline of the flowers and the stems. I've now gone back to the thin black pen, and I'm just doing a shadow line on each of the letters, so the left hand side and the underneath of each parts of the letters, to give it a shadow, and it'll make that pop from the background. It took me a long time to actually be okay with my own handwriting, but now I quite like it. I don't know why I was so scared of it. But I find that if I sort of write quick rather than think too much about it, it comes out the way that I like it. So I just continue to shade through the text. And I'm really liking how this page is coming together. And I think the quote is quite apt for this moment in time. And I'm really liking these magazine art journals. It's really takes the pressure off, I think, and you're recycling. You've got something at home, you don't have to buy new things, you just use what you've got. And it's going to be a really lovely way to actually use inspiration from the pages underneath. When I first thought about it, I thought it was a bit intimidating, but it's actually quite good because I just end up picking up the colours or some words or something else from underneath. I'm just going over the page now, doing some little dots in the background with the fine marker, and then I've picked up the thick marker and doing some thicker dots on the flowers. So you can see they're not supposed to be really realistic flowers, just more impression. And there you have another page. So I hope you've enjoyed that. I really enjoyed doing it. I love these colours. Sign up for my newsletter for more videos, and I'll see you around. Thanks for watching.